What's up, everybody? Brett here, back today, bringing you some more Total War Warhammer 2 hot multiplayer action. Today is going to be an FFA played by yours truly. I'm going to be bringing the heat of the Dowie in literal heat here in the form of a flame cannon. It's on one of my favorite FFA maps, perhaps one of my favorite maps in the entire huge list of maps you can play, and that's because of the terrain variants. This is the Steppes of Isha, the Shining Summit. There are terrain features, there are blockers, line of sight blockers, there's ups and downs. This is an awesome map for the Dowie. There's choke points where I can make use of my long beards and miners with blasting charges. There's artillery pieces here that are really favored for their parabolic arc in the form of the flame cannons and the Goblobber. My opponents here are going to be Norska, Skaven, and Bretonnia respectively. I'm in, honestly, one of the locations that I didn't want to be in, but we'll see how it ends up turning out for me. I would have much rather been in one of these higher ground positions, but being placed here in more of an open field, as much as this map has open field, I needed to find a way to turn it to my advantage, and I think I did. Unfortunately, for my Norscan player here, they were placed next to me, and I'm going to take full advantage. I've got 4 units of gyrocopters, 2 with the brimstone guns, 2 without, and they're going to be flying straight over to this Norscan army, which does not have any anti-air whatsoever. They've got Famir, they've got Skin Wolves, they've got War Mammoth and a Feral Mantis over here. They've got Marauders and Berserkers in spades, as well as a Shaman with the Lore of Fire and Wolfric the Wanderer. But I've got the choke point, I've got the high ground Anakin. I've got 3 units of Bugman's Rangers here on the back with Ulthar's Raiders looking to cast. They have this bound ability marked by Ulthar, which lowers missile parry and missile resistance as well as armor. I'm going to be using the heck out of that this battle. Slayer's here to protect from any Vanguard type shenanigans. I don't actually know what the Vanguard possibilities are on this map. But my front line, as I've stated, Longbeards intermixed with Miners with blasting charges. I've got the Gremlin Guard here, kind of holding down the center. These guys have their vigor reduction aura that they have, plus 9%. It used to be so much better. And then for my lore choice and hero choices, I've got a Rune Lord on his Anvil of Doom. Why bring the Rune Lord? Well, one of the worst things that can happen to you in an FFA is that you get nuked by magic. And with this, the Locus of Power, the Dwarves are already naturally magic resistant, but you add the Locus of Power to their natural magic resistance, and my entire army has 40% magical resistance, which is huge. I've also got Gotrek here, and we can look at his one ability that I decided to bring, which is Gotrek's Doom, giving him damage resistance as well as melee defense, and Heroic Fortitude, which can give him some mana regen, or HP regen rather. And then we've also got Felix here with Blood Oath, which does give HP regen as long as you are fighting near an ally, hero or lord. And then Helping Hand for more damage resistance as well as melee attack. It synergizes so well together. My Goblobber and my Flame Cannon are already opening up, tearing into the Norskins, who are going to try and close the distance. They've got their army split. Looks like maybe they partly wanted to go for the Skaven, but once I think these Flame Cannons and Gyrocopters start having their way, they're going to realize that they either need to commit to the Dowie fight or pay the price. And yeah, the Gyrocopters are shooting in. And we're going to do quite the number on this force here. So I want to very quickly go over the Bretonnian and Skaven roster because we're not really going to get to them for quite some time. We're going to have our hands full with this Norscan army. Just cheap chaff in the front line for the Bretonnians. They've got a back line of Peasant Bowmen, a Damsel with the Lore of Life and Heals, Grell Relique, as well as 2 Blessed Field Trebuchets. King Lewin Leoncourt up here with pretty much all of his buffs and debuffs. And then Royal Hippogriff Knights, a group you don't get to see very often here. But they are going to be quite the force to be reckoned with on this battlefield, riding their Hippogriffs. Pretty much uncontested. And the Skaven player, I loved his army when I saw it. Unfortunately, he felt like he was very out of position. And he decided to move his entire force this way. And we'll see what kind of effects that has for him. Oh yeah, also, Bretonnians also have 2 groups of Questing Knights, as well as 2 Grail Knights hidden in the forest. Now, the Skaven player is going to be bringing up his 2 groups of Doom Flayers, as well as his 2 Doom Wheels, one of which is Ikit Claw. Going to be spamming that Warp Lightning, no doubt. He's going to try to come up and around and gank the Bretonnian player. I don't know if that's going to work out too well for him. He's got a mix of Clan Rats and Storm Vermin in the front line, as well as these Eshin Triads. He's got an Assassin, But the main thing he was probably hoping to do a lot of damage with were these poisoned wind mortars, as well as the death glow mortars. The Regiment of Renown can be devastating, especially versus all of this infantry here, but I'm not sure he's going to get a chance to use it this battle. Flamestorm going off on my Longbeards, and it crushed me, because the Flamestorm went and it reverberated off this wall, as it does in siege battles, and it bounced right back into my Longbeards and nuked them. So even with, what is it, 40% magic resistance, look how much damage my Longbeards still managed to take. And with my gyrocopters, I've dropped bombs. I dropped all their payload. And we killed so many marauders. Let's go ahead and speed this up. I'm still dropping bombs. The flame cannon is raining in. The Goblobber is applying its morale debuff, which is doing its work. It's breaking some of these units before they ever get in the battle. Wulfric here is trying to use a Sea Fang, but I'm going to sort of dodge it. Sort of, you know, it's a weird cast. I'm going to hurry up and pull the Grumbling Guard into place here, so that they can eat the charge from these Famir warriors, skin wolves, that are going to try to get into my back line. Oh, it's so beautiful. The Norscan player is trying to rally. Oh, no. Yeah, another beautiful Flamestorm from my opponent. I saw it coming, and I pulled my Slayers out of the way. And they just ran into it the whole time and lost, I don't know, 70% of their HP. So terrible. My Lords and Heroes here going to be doing battle with the Famir, while the Bugman's Rangers shoot over the top. The War Mammoth comes in, and in comes all the satchels from these blasting charges. They're going to do good work as well. Only some of these Skin Wolves are able to push past the Grumbling Guard. Master Rune of Oath and Steel and Master Rune of Negation is going to keep them healthy and fighting. They haven't lost a model yet. But this is such a dangerous fight for us. Try and keep an eye on the Skaven. They're getting wrecked by all the mobility of the Bretonnians right now in the background. Bugman's Rangers, what makes them special is their regeneration ability. They haven't taken any damage yet. They just, oh man. They have 12 ammunition currently. Their ammunition is going to be a huge factor for me this battle. And I've managed to switch some of my artillery pieces over to this force that's trying to wrap around and get on the other side of the battlefield. But I still have some infantry left to hold these two flanks. Slayers have been brought in versus the War Mammoth. Let's follow these flame shots. Oh, it's so brutal. Gyrocopters are spreading out. They're taking certain shots. I got them shooting into the back here on these marauders. Once again, I dodged another Sea Fang. Definitely, might I add. The Gyrocopter is going to be chasing down some of the routing elements while shooting into the backs of others. I want to regroup. I want to reform my front lines and deal with this mammoth at my leisure. But the Marauders and the Berserkers making it tough. Wulfric, however, did not have a good time when he came in. Gotrek and Felix with the Rune Lord are a pretty tough little combo. The Pharaoh Mammoth is stomping the yard. But a couple more shots here will make it go feral. It will rampage. And a rampaging Pharaoh Mammoth in and amongst Dawi infantry is still pretty scary. It's just our opponent can no longer control it. War Mammoth here. I need to be chasing this off the battlefield. I think the Slayers are chasing, but they're not fast enough to really keep it moving. So I took the Goblobber and continued to shoot at it because it will continue to apply its discouraged effect. Unfortunately, it missed too many shots in a row, and that allowed the War Mammoth to rally here right at the edge of the map. Pharaoh Mammoth, another huge threat that needs to be pushed off. The Bugman's Rangers is just going to keep shooting at it. They have decent armor piercing. And yeah, the Slayers are just going to have to tackle this massive beast all by themselves. While the Rune Lord here, with the Rune of Negation going off, the ward save is incredible. But he also gets up to 100 and I think it's 180 armor when he pops his other rune of Oath and Steel. Sword of Torval going off, giving him plus 90% base weapon strength, 778 on Wulfric. But Gotrek has something to say about it. And his Power Mohawk, he's just chopping into Wulfric from behind, meaning his melee defense doesn't mean anything here. Everything is pretty much going to break off here from the Dwarf player. Felix just applying that healing. As long as he's engaged in melee, he's going to be healing one of our heroes. Gyrocopters nearly spent on their ammunition. Some of them are already spent. And they're the ones that I'm going to be wanting to use to run off different aspects of the Norscan army. The Bretonnian player has managed to stabilize here. He sent out his Royal Hippogriff Knights and King Lewin early on with his Questing Knights and his Grail Knights, and broke a lot of the most dangerous elements of the Skaven player's army. Ikit Claw here is nearly down for the count. He doesn't really want to fight Questing Knights. Not on the Doom Wheel. And yeah, this Assassin's in the wrong neighborhood. We've got his Brass Orb here. He tried to land it on the Peasant Bowman. A little bit of a whiff. Good play from the Bretonnian player, moving his archers out of the way. But now that he's handled his Skaven threat effectively in the same way that I've kind of handled the Norscan threat, his Field Trebuchets, they're blessed by the way, are going to be turning on to me. The fact that they're blessed is relevant. They do magic damage, and I've got 40% magic resistance. So even direct hits on me aren't going to be that effective. And I'm looking to regroup. I've got units that are chasing off broken units. I don't need to chase off shattered stuff. But the broken units need to be chased off by my Gyrocopters. And I see that the Bretonnian player is quite the threat. I looked over here. At this point, I was very preoccupied with what I was doing with the Norscan player. But when I saw this huge tide of very healthy infantry headed my way, and I started to feel the sting of these trebuchets, I realized, holy crap, I've got to reform ranks. I've got to answer this threat. And I saw the Royal Hippogriff Knights, and I said, oh geez. And I looked at my ammunition. I have almost no ammunition left on my Bugman's Rangers. The Ulthar's Raiders do still have some ammo. I have some very healthy miners, which I'm going to be pulling into the front line. I've got a little bit of ammo left on my flame cannons. A good bit of ammo left on the Goblobbers. But yeah, I need to keep everything high and tight. I need to get my Lords back together. My Longbeards took the biggest beating in those fights. And you can see here I'm a little bit blobbed up, but I'm going to be reorganizing my ranks as I get some of my elements closer and closer. The Goblobber's shooting in. Oh yeah, some good direct hits here. The Peasant Bowmen don't have the best leadership, so if you can just land a couple shots from a Goblobber, you can pretty much route whatever you want out of this group here. But once the Grail Relique shows up, it's going to be a lot harder to route them. It'll give that encouragement aura and prevent them from getting routed. So I see here the battlefield has changed. I've got this alleyway here, and kind of like this space here. And I'm going to try to move up. I wasn't expecting my opponent to move up. I thought he might feel that he had the high ground with the trebuchets and just decide to sit up here and just wail on me this entire fight. Unfortunately, the last of my ammo on my Bugman's Rangers is going to go into the shielded infantry. I didn't quite mean for that to be the case, but that's just what happened. Oh no. And these spearmen are never going to make it into combat. They're being discouraged as well. If we can hover over that, they're burnt. So their leadership has dropped thanks to the flame cannon. So something kind of sneaky that I did that I thought was actually a pretty good play. I sent in my Gyrocopters to try and muck up and hold down these Royal Hippogriff Knights. But a regrowth was cast from the Damsel with the Lore of Life. And even though I marked them with Ulthar's Raiders, it still wasn't enough to start killing models, which I was really trying to do. And the Bretonnian player, to his credit, instantly recognized the threat that the Ulthar's Raiders represented. Now, they don't have the best range at 80. It's actually pretty poor. So I had to get in pretty damn close in order to hit them. And my Lord and Heroes and some of my units are going up and around to shut down these Peasant Archers, while the Skaven player is sort of doing me a solid here with his Death Runners, with his Assassin. And I was attempting to shut down these Field Trebuchets with my Gyrocopters. I sent this one in to try and shut down this one. And then I saw the Skaven player coming, and I pulled back up into the air so that my Gyrocopters wouldn't be any part of the savagery that's about to happen here. Rune Lord popping all of his buffs. As he engages against these Grail Knights, this is a pretty pivotal part of the battle as well. And the Flame Cannon tears in. Look at all the dead Grail Knights. This was like my opponent's Alpha Strike on my Lord. And the last remaining ammo from the Flame Cannon just tears into them. They went from being incredibly healthy to they don't even want to fight anymore. That's awesome. And Bugman's Rangers, because of their regen and their decent stats as just straight up powerful Dawi, are going to be able to overwhelm all of the frontline units that they still have left here. Bugman's Rangers putting up a fight versus the Royal Hippogriff Knights. I mean, they are going to get lots and lots of kills. The Goblobber's still shooting in. He's got plenty of ammo. At some point, King Lewin is going to try and shut that down. The Ulthar's Raiders rally and are here to help. Grail Relic almost Almost out of commission. This assassin came in to try and do some work on my Rune Lord, oddly enough, while I was trying to beat down this damsel with the lure of life. There's just so many threats. I want to chase off these Grail Knights, all 9 of them. I've got 61 Miners with Blasting Charges here, and I think they should be able to beat them at 400 HP. I mean, yeah, they have armor piercing. I would hope they can win. I took the Flame Cannon crew, since they no longer have any ammunition, and I sent them over here to reinforce, hoping that they would help out. Now, what I really don't want to do, and I'm kind of doing it now, but I'm pulling them back, I don't want to overextend with my heroes. I want to keep them high and tight, because at any point, King Lewin and the Hippogriff Knights could come in and just dump me. Let's go into K mode here. This is pretty sweet. Now, he's using some of his debuffs. He's got the Sword of Corone, and it's going to be lowering the stats of my units around them, so they're just going to be feasting here. Beaky and all of his buddies. Longbeard's kind of keeping them stable. Longbeards have an encouragement aura as if they are hero units. But the Sword of Corone is just devastating. Lowering my armor and my melee defense. Making it so that even these soft noodle slapping spearmen and arms with shields are going to be able to hurt my mighty Longbeards. But the Ulthar's Raiders came back. My opponent once again recognized them as a threat. I had marked by Ulthar again. I was just trying to kill models, but they're so hard to kill. He's still up to 7 out of 8 models. And as long as the model count is high, the DPS is high. That's the big thing. And he's going to also try and shut down my Goblobber, which at this point doesn't have a ton of targets. But it's still affecting the balance of power quite heavily with all of the ammunition that it still has. So it's a good target to take on. And unfortunately, I just don't have the mass to hold these Hippogriffs in place. The Damsel with the Lure of Life probably doesn't have much in the way of Winds of Magic left. We can see here I'm rallying with a lot of my troops. I should be pulling them back in a second. But man, the Spearmen with the support of those Grail Knights, they held for quite a second. But I should be able to pull these guys back. They're too healthy to be over here fighting. Gyrocopters, I've got them at pretty much all the corners of the map chasing stuff off. I will be bringing them back at some point, because they're the only thing with the mobility and the mass that I have that can hold down these units. Unfortunately, they're not in the battle right now. Let's zoom in on Gotrek here. Yeah, once they take to the air, Gotrek, for all his might, he has nothing to threaten them with. Just got to keep them together. Keep Felix and Gotrek together. And I should have my Rune Lord together as well. You can see, obviously, I'm trying to rally. I'm trying to make something of a fortified position here. This was just a quick attempt to pull my units together. I had them all in hot groups, and at this point, I'm taking off the locks that forced them to move in kind of funny ways. And I waited for this. I knew this was coming. So I popped the Master Rune of Oath and Steel negation, as well as using Helping Hand, putting myself up to 88% ward save, so that they would not be able to snipe out my Rune Lord. And Flesh to Stone being used on the Royal Hippogriff Knights, giving them 60 armor. That was a pretty good play as well. Did not think the Damsel still had it in her. And then the Sword of Corone, one of the MVP skills on King Lewin for sure. It just feels like it's always off cooldown, and it's always there to mess you up. I know I had attack orders on Gotrek, but look at him. He's just standing there, not using any of his awesome DPS to do work. And then he turns around and karate chops some of these spearmen. What I really need him to do right now is start slaying Royal Hippogriff Knights. And I can't keep them off of the Rune Lord forever. Once all those runes and all those buffs wear off, he's really just a huge slow target for someone like King Lewin. And the Spearmen at Arms are doing just enough mucking me up to keep me from running away. And yeah, I'm broken right now. Felix, Gotrek still fighting. Having your Lord break can have devastating effects on your troops' leadership. So you can see, you know, they're already quite hurt. But now they're routing. And I need to get all of these other healthier units back into the fight. I'm putting my Goblobber back online. And down goes my Lord with one final thrust of the mighty Hippogriff's beak. The toilet seat crashes into the dust. But the Gyrocopters have returned. I'm grabbing them from all the corners of the map, and I'm trying to pin them into an actual fight with me. Let's see, we've broken the Royal Hippogriff Knights. Gotrek at some point started to get in there and do real work and slap around those Hippogriff Knights, and he killed several of the models. And that was what we needed. Because they were low on HP. He just needed to land a couple hits. Goblobber's going to be shooting in. Gyrocopters using their rotary blades to tear into the spearmen. But Gotrek is now on to King Lewin. And keep in mind, King Lewin has regen. So you gotta, if you're gonna kill him, he's one of those guys that's best saved for last. Certain lords in this game, you want to wait to kill them until the rest of their army is defeated, just because it's so difficult to take them out. Oh no, this is oh, that's a massive grudgeon. My Goblobber shot right in here, but what it did do was apply the, for a moment at least, it applied the leadership debuff to King Lewin. It did it to my units as well. I think that's something they recently changed though. The debuffs, just like poison, don't apply to friendly fire. But it did give him just enough of a leadership debuff to break. And it was mostly army losses. We were chasing his hippogriffs off the battlefield, as well as his spearmen. But it was such a great battle, I felt like I had to cast this. Unfortunately, guys, this was the second time I cast this. That's why my voice, maybe it sounded a little bit shot during this recording. I recorded it, the recording messed up, and I had to do it again. I took a little break in between to give my voice a rest, but I still felt it cracking this whole time. Hopefully that wasn't too noticeable. But look at the kills racked up on the flame cannons and the goblobbers. I love these two. The flame cannons were more of a meme pick, pretty much in every map and every matchup. But if they're ever going to be good, they're going to be good in a map like this, where you can protect them, where they don't need huge range to be effective, and they have the type of arc needed to go over some of the smaller buildings and stuff that are in the way. The Bugman's Rangers, awesome range tools that doubled as melee units in the late game. The Longbeards held in the way that I needed them to, and my hero core remained quite strong. The combo of Gotrek and Felix with the defensive buffs of a Rune Lord, pretty good 1-2-3 punch. And then my uncontested gyrocopters, all game, they fired all the ammunition, dropped all their bombs, and then were still there to chase things off and to muck things up later. My Slayers and my Grumbling Guard took the brunt of pretty much every engagement and held like champs. Let's see, and then the Norskin player, if he'd have gone up against any other person, if he'd have sent his troops straight at the Bretonnian player or straight at the Skaven player, he would have crushed them. This is such an overwhelming melee-focused build that I don't see these other players having the ability to stop that. He just happened to run against the dwarves. I had charge defense against large. I had layered defenses with blasting charges and crossbowmen. I had gyrocopters who were able to run out and intercept and drop bombs and soften them up, while the flame cannons and the goblobbers rained fire down below. And then my hero and lord core was too tanky to fall before Wulfric. So, yeah, on paper it kind of looks like this might work, but in the choke points, the Dawi have the advantage for sure. But had he sent his troops into the Skaven, it could have been a whole different story. These Death Runners managed to stay alive into the late game. They got a lot of kills. But everything else here got stomped. No value on any of these mortars or these Doomflayers and Doomwheels. And that's because the Bretonnian player, who played very well, ambushed him and caught them kind of isolated, flat-footed, on the move. What I like to do in a map like that, if I have to move, I'll make all my groups, all my hot groups, I'll lock them. And then there's some controls that you can use to move your entire army at once. As I'm trying to think of it right now, I just kind of note, my muscle memory tells me how to do it. I want to say it's shift. You drag shift, and then you can, I think, alt. You can move people forward. I need to try and like make a video one of these days on my movement commands. But it allows you to move your entire army as one unit and to maintain your formations. And I think the Skaven player would have benefited a lot from that, because this is like a huge vulnerable army that really wanted to be stationary but ended up having to move. So the Bretonnian player, yeah, check this out. 383 kills. They were definitely the MVPs of the entire battle, for sure, were the Royal Hippogriff Knights. And with healing support from the Damsel, they were incredible. The Grail Knights ran over the Skaven. The Trebuchets did work. Yeah, Peasant Bowman, I managed to shut them down, thankfully. But he had such a healthy army whenever we faced off that I was actually worried. I didn't know how much magic he had left. King Lewin's always a pain in the butt to take down. And I think if I had tried to focus him in some way, it would have gone disastrous. So I think it was the right move to focus on destroying all of the infantry, just ignore him and his hippogriffs as much as I can. You know, use Ulthar's Raiders, but everything else was really committed to taking out the Cav, chasing that off, and destroying the infantry, and I thought that ended up being the right move. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. My name is Brett, channel's Goodtalk Gaming, and as always, y'all, I will see you in the next one. Take care, guys.